Right now, though, we're going to talk it over with the president of the Cardinals, John Mozeliak. John, good to be with you. How are you today, sir?
I'm well, Frank. Good morning.
A lot to talk about, including a kind of an eventful pitching night for the Cardinals with Jack Flaherty going in Memphis and then the rookie Andre Pallante going in St. Louis. I remember you told me in the spring, I asked you for a name. Give me one name that people don't know about who you really liked, and you said keep an eye on Andre Pallante. He has been better than advertised.
You know, it's exciting to see what he's doing. I'm really excited to see how he continues to work towards this rotation. Obviously, when you're looking at some of the injuries we're dealing with, we're just trying to find people to fill that gap of innings. And so, you know, when you look at him just from a pure talent standpoint, there's a lot to like. He's got the horsepower. You know, for him, it's really about being consistent, being able to go deeper into a game, being able to leverage that pitch count. And hopefully that's what we see. But, you know, he's a really a good young man in the sense of, like, he understands what he needs to do. And I think he's up for the challenge of trying to find a way to start at the big league level.
Let's assume Flaherty is good tonight, and let's assume the next day he feels good. How quickly could we see him here?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to answer. But if all goes well tonight, I suspect you'd at least have 2 more rehab appearances before you would see him in the big leagues. But I think we have to take every outing in its own and just sort of evaluate it from there. But certainly, you know, good news that he's actually pitching in a game tonight at the AAA level. And so we're hoping for the best.
He told us the other day at Busch that he loved the way the ball was coming out of his hand and that his shoulder felt better in that outing at Busch Stadium than it did all of last year. And that really must feel good.
Yeah, I mean, they've spent a lot of time on mechanics. I know that's been a real focus for our coaching staff and him. And, you know, right now the returns that we're seeing are very positive. And the feedback Jack gives all of us is super encouraging. But, you know, we're still not at the point where he's contributing to the major league club, but that's ultimately where we hope to get to. And then we get that type of dominant performance we saw a few years ago from him.
What's your policy with really talented pitchers? Let me be really specific. A guy like Ryan Helsley, who wants to be a starter, he's told us that on camera, but he's out of central casting to be a closer. He's fitting that role really well, either the 8th or the 9th inning. What if he comes to you in the offseason and says, I really want to become a starter, but even though he may be more suited to be a closer? What's your take on that?
Well, when you say more suited, is that because you're just assuming he's good at it? Or the reality is like if someone wants to come into camp and start, then they have to do their own prep to go into camp to get stretched out. And so ultimately, you know, we're not opposed to giving people chances to start. I mean, obviously, you saw what we did with Hicks this year. This is something that, you know, he desired. And in terms of planning, it's much easier to take someone that wants to start and then put them into the bullpen versus taking someone that's in the bullpen and making them start, unless you do it in the off season. And so if that's something that Helsley's really interested in doing, we'll encourage him to prepare accordingly.
Speaking of Hicks, what's the latest there?
You know, he's hopefully going to get off a mound this weekend, meaning a bullpen. And then based on how that goes, really we can determine sort of next step or try to soft circle a date where we can have him go out on a rehab. But, you know, fingers are crossed that we can get something out of that.
And do you anticipate him coming back and being in the bullpen, or does he get a chance to start again?
You know, my guess is the way we're positioned right now, I would say it's more likely out of the bullpen, but I don't think we've made that conclusion.
All right. Let's get to some of your everyday players. Would you anticipate Dylan Carlson being in the starting lineup tonight?
I don't know if he's in the lineup tonight. Haven't seen the lineup, but I would anticipate he will likely play, yes.
What are you seeing with Tyler ONeal as we speak? He had 4 hits in 2 games yesterday, hit the ball hard a couple of times. Is this a new and improved Tyler ONeal, or does he get a pass those first couple of months because, as we found out, the shoulder impingement really did play a factor?
You know, I think spending time on the IL was probably just a good opportunity for him to reset, both physically and mentally. And looks like he's in a good place. Obviously, you know, when you look at our club, we expected a lot out of him, and in terms of for us to be good, we need all of our players contributing. And obviously, the first couple months of the season for him, he wasn't playing at the level that I think we expected or he expected, and so to see him contribute the way he did over the last couple of days, that's great, and hopefully he can build on that.
Ali Marmol acknowledged the defense would be better if former regular shortstop Paul DeYoung was here rather than in Memphis. Are you satisfied with the progress DeYoung is making in Memphis? I know he has 6 home runs and has hit a little bit better lately.
Definitely pleased with what we're seeing out of him. You know, are we at the point where we think we need to make a change? No, but you know, I'm still hopeful that he is someone that will be part of this club at some point this year. And I think just letting him be in an environment where he doesn't have to put as much pressure on himself, and hopefully when he does get that opportunity to come back here, it's the Paul that you know we originally liked and invested in. So, you know, that's fingers are crossed that we'll see that out of him.
John, can you remember a time in your tenure here with the Cardinals that you've had so many promising, young, dynamic offensive players? I'm thinking Burleson, Walker, Donovan, Yepes, Gorman, so many guys 25 and under who've just begun their careers or who have yet to begin their careers with so much promise.
Probably not in that bulk. I mean, there was obviously the time where, you know, where we had like the Alan Craigs, John Jays, David Freese, Scalzo, you know, where those guys all had like great major league careers and you know, did a lot of good things in their career. But when you look at it just from sort of that sub 22 age and how well this group is performing at the minor leagues, and then the guys that are getting chances at the big leagues, pretty exciting. So, no, I think that's something I haven't seen in my 27 years with the Cardinals. And so I think when you think about the future of the Cardinals or how we're positioned, pretty proud about where we stand right now.
I know we're not going to talk trades or anything, but look, you have your outfielders that you believe in ONeal, Bader, and Dylan Carlson, and for a good reason. They all have had really good moments in their big league careers. But I'm wondering if there is a pitching issue and you have this surplus of young hitters, does that make it a little easier to give up one of those guys to bring in a good arm?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I certainly the question itself is sort of difficult to answer. You know, obviously you want to trade from your strength or where you have, you know, higher volume, but I'm hoping our pitching will work itself out. I think the last few weeks it's been stressed. I think it's been stressed because we've had to do a few bullpen type games. I still think we have a talented group. We're just trying to find that right balance, mix and match, and clearly getting somebody like Flaherty back, a Hicks back, and even a Matz back will deepen our club. But you know, it's about sort of grinding through that period when these guys are out. And you know, all teams go through this in a season. You know, right now you're seeing a lot of teams in the Central battle injuries, and you know, for the Cardinals' standpoint, we're optimistic of where this is going. But you know, clearly we understand there's going to be some dates where our pitching looks frustrating.
What about the young lefties in your organization? If you can give me your take on where they stand now with Zach Thompson and Matthew Libator and what they have to do to become established major league pitchers.
Well, right now we're just trying to keep fresh arms, and this is not really like a commentary on how they've pitched when they're up here. It's just about how we can keep adding some freshness to our club. And when you think about last weekend in Chicago, you know, getting through that doubleheader and then ultimately having to then run down to Tampa, we figured it was best to have Libby go back and pitch versus how we might use him later. Remind yourself, we also have a doubleheader coming on Tuesday, so you know we're going to have some pitching available for that too. So it's been sort of an interesting couple weeks where you're managing what's happening at Memphis just as much as you're managing at what's happening in St. Louis.
Paul, Goldschmidt's season, is this the best you've seen since Albert was in his prime, if you factor in everything?
Goldie's an amazing player. I think the one thing that makes him so special is just he literally is a complete player. I mean, everything he does right, whether it's, base running, defense, and then from an offensive standpoint, he's one of the most impactful bats right now in baseball. So, it's great to see. I think, when you think back to Albert's days, for a decade, he was one of the most feared hitters on earth. And, that's saying something. But, having guys play at that level on a club makes everything else a little easier.
Back to your young players for just for a moment. You guys were ahead of the game with Nolan Gorman in that you knew that his natural position was third, but you have Nolan Arenado. Let's get him some reps at second base, and it's worked out reasonably well. Now, you also could have a similar situation in Jordan Walker, who you've compared, I think, in the past with some of the great hitters in recent Cardinal history. He's a third baseman, can play first. This offseason, would you think about, hey, let's get you a little bit more athletic, maybe a little thinner, and make you an outfielder because he plays the two positions where you have, franchise players?
Well, I don't think we need to do anything with his athleticism. He's already
really
an amazing athlete. Yeah. I think getting reps at a different position at some point would make sense. I mean, the one thing that I really enjoy watching about our club is some of the players that we have, how flexible they are to be moved around. You think back to when the Cubs were having a lot of their success, you had a player by the name of Zobrist that just gave the manager so much flexibility. And I'm not telling you that Brendan Donovan is that or Tommy Edman is that, but these guys bring a lot of flexibility to your lineup because they're not afraid to get moved around. And from an offensive standpoint, they don't seem to ever take a step back wherever you play them. And so that's really encouraging news. And at some point, I do think Jordan Walker, getting some reps in the outfield will probably benefit him. But ultimately, you're going to be judged by your bat. And right now, it's pretty exciting to watch. And, he's been very impressive as a 19-year-old down in Double-A. So very excited about what we're seeing there.
Are you having any conversations at all about Adam Wainwright and his future? Because he's gone out of his way to say, hey, I don't want to talk about retirement, and he shouldn't if he's still one of the better pitchers in baseball. I mean, how do you see this thing?
Well, I've known Adam a long time. I will defer to him on how he wants to think about his future. I think a lot of people don't understand the calculus that goes into his thinking. Here's a guy that's been, enormously successful. He's made a lot of money in this game. He takes a lot of pride in being a father, husband, and, ultimately what he ends up deciding, he and I will have a sit down and we'll figure out what the future looks like. But at this moment, as we sit here on, June 10th, neither one of us are pressuring each other for anything. So it's been fun to watch. You think back to where he was 4 or 5 years ago, and then to see where he is today, it's impressive.
I know you guys are going to be wrapped up in trying to win a division in those final couple of weeks, but what type of talks have there been, if any, about a separate? Would it be Albert and Yachty Day together, or would you do it separately?
Well, even if I had that answer, I don't know if I'd share it today. But obviously, it'll be special, and what they've meant to this franchise is something that I don't know if will ever be replicated. And very lucky that all of us had the opportunity to watch these guys. And I think having Albert back has been really, really an enjoyable time, and I'm glad it happened.
And would you prefer if they don't pitch again this season?
Well, I don't know. If we're winning by a lot, I hope they do pitch.
If they're winning. Okay, I got you. Good stuff, John. Great information, and really appreciate your time. We'll see you at the ballpark this weekend, sir.
That sounds great. Thank you.